The highest achievement medal in the infantry that you can earn in peacetime is the Expert Infantry Badge. And it's like 100 different infantry tasks, including shooting rifles and road marches and land navigation during the day and during the night. I earned that badge, and then I became an instructor. I teach businesses how to respond to an active shooter threat. The reality is, you get shot, you fight to the end. You may not be a fighter. Most people aren't. You can't say to yourself, well, I'm not that person. I'm not that kind of a person. Well, then you're dead.
Why is this guy? I mean, his name is floating around everywhere, and I've heard about him for a few years now. What do you think is the goal here? Why is that one man is so interested in shifting these things in our country?
I think George Soros, he's very smart, very savvy businessman. He's not just doing this willy-nilly. He's got an end agenda in mind, and it is to collapse our dollar like he collapsed the British dollar. Active shooters incidents and scenarios are happening more and more. And so people have to develop a mindset, whether they're carrying a gun or not, that they're going to do whatever it takes to...
Where do you think we would be if we didn't have people who are actually fighting for these rights?
It's pretty easy to see where we'd be. Look at every nation that has outlawed the right for people to carry. Always, not sometimes, not most of the times, always tends towards tyrannical.
Whether you are someone who loves guns and you're pro Second Amendment, or maybe you're someone who hates guns and you think that there should be more strict gun laws, or maybe you're just an average American who cares about your safety and the safety of your loved ones, I think you're going to enjoy this podcast. Today we have Chad Hertzel with us. He is the owner of Confidence Safety Academy, and they offer training, firearm training, safety training, CCW courses, and even real estate safety training. I'm kind of interested in that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I heard a lot of different stories about what goes on when realtors go out to vacant properties, and sometimes they come across some weird stuff.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. There was a point where I didn't really care too much about guns at all. Mm-hmm. Growing up in a Christian Slavic family, that was something that nobody, especially back in the former USSR, we don't have Second Amendment, what here in America we have. So until about around 4 or 5 years ago, and I think it was an accumulation of different things. So I don't know if you remember, we had a lot of these protests throughout the country, especially after the George Floyd
I remember.
situation. And when I saw what was happening in different cities, when I saw and heard about the school shootings in churches, all that, the violence, and then living in California, and then constant messaging from some of the, more specifically one party in the government talking about, okay, we got to do something with these gun owners, gun rights, and all that. And that's when I changed a little bit of my mindset about gun ownership, safety, and just not too long ago, we met. So to start us off, if you can please give us a little bit of your background and what you do, and then we'll continue on, talk about what let's say the news from last month about what Trump announced.
Yeah. So my background, I was also raised in a Christian home in Minnesota, and we weren't anti-gun, but my dad was always afraid that one of us would get shot on a hunting trip. So he wasn't raised with guns, never spoke bad about him. He was in Vietnam, so he wasn't nervous with guns, but we just didn't have guns. And it wasn't a thing. We fished. It was in Minnesota, so we fished a lot. All my cousins and uncles all hunted. I never did. Wasn't really anything I was interested in for recreational purposes, but I always wanted to go into the Army. My grandpa fought in the Pacific Conference World War II. My dad was in Vietnam. I was very patriotic, and I knew I wanted to go in the Army when I got out of high school. So like in junior high, I would raid my dad's Vietnam clothes bag, his Army bag, duffel bag with all the Vietnam vintage clothes. Me and my friends would go out in the woods and dress up and put like paint on our face, really nasty paint, whatever it took. We were just out there, just playing Army.
Yeah.
So I knew I wanted to do that. And so the first day of my senior year of high school, came home from school. I went to Roseville High School. So we moved out here in the middle of my junior high year between 7th and 8th grades, 1987. So I was in high school out here in California, Roseville, California. After my first day, took a bus to the Oakland MEP Center, skipped my second day of high school for my senior year, and swore in. My mom just thought she was giving me permission to go down to the MEP Center, but not to join. So she wanted to sue the Army. And like, what did you think you were signing for, Mom? I told you I was going to join. So I was 17. I joined, but they said you have to, get it needs at least a C average before to graduate the C average for you to go in. And I did not have a C average, so I took all the easy. I had to take freshman English for the third year. It wasn't that I was dumb. I was just really lazy. I slept through most of high school. Had a paper up that might have contributed to it. I was always up real early. So anyway, I graduated with a C average because I took a bunch of easy classes. And that summer of '92, I went in the Army. I joined for the 82nd Airborne as a paratrooper infantryman, light infantry. I just wanted to go and serve my country and defend it and die for it if possible. I didn't care. I was just a young kid, Your brain's not fully developed then, so you have a lot of thoughts about this is what I'm willing to do, and I'm going to do it, and I'll die for my country. I mean, I still would in certain circumstances.
Well, thank you so much for your service.
Yeah, thank you.
Really, really.
So anyway, I did that for 3 years. While I was in, I got married to, it wasn't a high school sweetheart, but somebody I knew since I was 14. And I wanted to go special forces, but then we moved off base and we lived next to a Green Beret. This is in Fort Bragg, which is the home of special forces, JFK Special Warfare Center. And when we moved off base next to a Green Beret and his wife, she was telling my wife, what that lifestyle is all about. And even in the 90s, they would deploy about 9 months out of the year, well before 9/11. So we realized this wouldn't be conducive to a good family environment. So I was thinking, well, what could I do on the outside world where I'm still serving my country, but I get to come home every night, and maybe I can carry a gun. And the thought was like, oh man, I could be a cop. Never thought about that. I mean, I did as a little kid, but in the Army, the cops there are MPs, and we'd always, we'd start the morning off, everybody, MPs, infantry, artillery, we'd start running down the same street in formation, chanting, cadences, and we'd see the MPs coming towards us, and we'd always chant, you can't spell wimp without MP. And then we'd like elbow them as they're coming by and steal their guidon and toss it, and it's like the only time we can get away with assaulting cops is right now, and we'd do it real good. So never really thought about that until then. And they had this thing. I went down to this, I don't know, someplace on base on Fort Bragg where they help you find jobs that you can get into. And they had this thing I never heard of called the internet. It was like mid-'90s, and they searched for every law enforcement opening in California, and they, printed it all up in that sheet of paper that you tore off the sides, the little holes, and I came home like talking to my wife, like, you would not believe this thing called the internet. It's amazing. They were able to find every job that opening in California for law enforcement. This is so cool. So I just started doing my research, and I wanted to be with the best. I was 82nd Airborne, and I was really proud to be with them, and I wanted to be with the best law enforcement agency. And after my research, I narrowed it down to the California Highway Patrol. So the biggest draw for me with them is they're statewide, and everybody had to go to the same academy. Everybody had the same training, so you knew that you could rely on the person to your left and your right, because we all had the same training. And that standardized training for me was just huge. So I joined the Highway Patrol. When I got out of the Army, active Army, I joined the National Guard. So I was still in the National Guard I got out in August '95 and of active duty, and from September of '95 till August of '99, I was in the National Guard. Joined the Highway Patrol at the end of '96. So there was a period of time where I was in the Highway Patrol and the National Guard. But again, this is the '90s. Nothing was going on in the '90s. I got no fun war stories to tell. Anyway, as far as the National Guard goes, in '99, it was like nothing's going on. I'm going to get out because I'm doing enough here. In the Highway Patrol, I got sent down to South Los Angeles office first, and I was there for 3.5 years. We worked, South Central, Compton, Watts, Long Beach, all just the concrete jungle. And as a young man just getting out of the Army, I was really excited about that, just the opportunity to just put everything I learned into action. In the Army, if I should back up just a little bit, the highest achievement medal in the infantry that you can earn in peacetime is the Expert Infantry Badge. And it's like 100 different infantry tasks, including shooting rifles and road marches and land navigation during the day and during the night, and just tons of different stuff. I earned that badge, and then I became an instructor for the Expert Infantry Badge course. So that was a lot of fun, just being able to get paratroopers qualified and certified with their Expert Infantry Badge. Anyway, fast forward again, I get out, I go in the Highway Patrol. I'm down in South LA for 3.5 years. I transfer to the Stockton office for just about a year, transfer to the South Sacramento office right before 9/11. And I'm there for a year. Then afterwards, I went to our headquarters. There's a position by the federal government that every agency, law enforcement agency in the country can have, but it has to be, at least at the time, I don't know if it still is this way, but it had to be filled by a sworn peace officer. And it was a federal excess property program and a counter-drug and anti-terrorism procurement coordinator, basically. So you're getting equipment to go fight the drug war or anti-terrorism. So that was my position for 4 years. It allowed me to use the GI Bill, go back to school, get an education. And then afterwards, I went to the Capitol. And while I was at the Capitol for 2 years, Schwarzenegger was governor. So I got to, while on scene, protect him. I wasn't part of the detail that took him out places, but he went everywhere. And it was too much for a married man. So I'll stay here at the Capitol. That was boring. So after 2 years, I went to the North Sacramento office and was a public information officer while I was there, became a drug recognition expert while I was there. And then last 5 years of my career, went up to the Auburn office and while there became an active shooter instructor, really enjoyed that. Then while I was getting ready to get out, at first my wife and I were thinking about maybe like buying RVs and renting them out and just doing that as a side gig because we both love camping. I wanted to kind of do something completely out of my wheelhouse, totally different than guns all the time. It wasn't because I didn't like guns. I did, but I just wanted to try something completely new. And our best friends down in Southern California who used to live up here got into this business of teaching CCW and teach people how to shoot, and they really were trying to encourage us to do this. And I was resistant for a while. I'm like, I just want to just focus on something completely different. And they just said, come on down and just monitor, just watch what we do. And then I did, and we had a long conversation, and it really, I think after that, something clicked in me that, actually this would be a really good thing. Not because I needed the money, because I was going to have a retirement check, but really what was the thing that really stood out to me about this whole industry was that it hit me how there is such a lack of training within the civilian world when it comes to guns that I never run into any civilian that knows what they're doing. Not that they don't know how to shoot, but they just don't know where to go next other than just going to a range and shooting at still targets. And so I just made it my goal to try to train myself as much as possible so I could pass that information on to civilians to help arm themselves. Probably the peak for me was the George Floyd riots. I had to work down at the Capitol. I mean, I was stationed in Auburn, but they were still sending everybody in Placer County down to the Capitol. I mean, Placer County sheriffs, Lincoln PD, Roseville PD, Rockland PD, everybody was going there. And tell you what, just standing down the barrel of looking at 30,000 people coming at you was it's a little bit intimidating. I'm not gonna lie. You had to swallow hard and just go, "Holy crap! I hope we can defend the Capitol," because
Intimidating, even for a law enforcement.
oh yeah, when it's 30,000, when the airplane overhead, the CHP airplane overhead's going, okay, we're estimating about 30,000 people coming your way. You're like, okay, I mean, if they really want to overrun us, they can definitely overrun us. We could have stopped them for a little bit, but they could have definitely done it. If they had the willpower to do it, they could have easily overrun us.
And sometimes it just takes one stupid move,
Yep.
and
Yep.
everything just breaks.
And everything was just tense. That whole period, that was a combination of that and the COVID shutdowns. That was just a really bad year for a lot of people, and especially in law enforcement, because we were all labeled as racist, and we had rocks and bottles and urine thrown at us. I had to pull a guy offline because somebody put a strobe light to his face and just held it there, and we had we just had to stand there. We couldn't defend ourselves, and so he's getting sick.
How do you guys handle this? Like, I watched some of the law enforcement in different situations, and especially when there are just people who are just getting in their faces and just like, but most of them just handle it so well. Is that part of the training?
Yeah, and it really it comes down a lot of training and personality. You have to have the right mentality to get in. Every law enforcement officer in the country, before they get in, they have to take a 2,000 question psych eval. It's put on by Minnesota. There's a name for it. I forget what it is. But it's 2,000 questions. You're literally going insane taking it because it's the weirdest questions. Like, do you have stomach pains? Do you have bad stomach pains? Do you have really bad stomach pains? And they nuance questions to where if it's nuanced this way, it's no, but if it's nuanced this way, it's yes, and you're hoping that they realize what they're doing here, and they do know what they're doing.
Wow.
I found out later, I got a lot of psychological training while I was in, and one of the things I did do in the Highway Patrol, in addition, was I was in our peer support program, so we were trained by police psychologists, which you get a lot of insight then into the psychological background. But the biggest thing that they're looking for two things when they administer the exam, and most cops don't even know this. But what they're looking for, two personality traits. You have to be a control freak, and you have to be a helper. You can't be one and not the other. They don't want just control freaks, because those are guys who, when they're getting yelled at, they're going to be the ones grabbing by the scruff of the neck and just punching back, and you can't have that. So you got to have people who want to tell people what to do. They ask you, do you like to tell people what to do? If you say no, when the psychologist looks at this and interviews you a couple months later, he or she's going to ask you, well, why do you want to be a cop? Because your job is to tell people what to do. That's your job. All day long, you're telling people what to do. But then you also have to be a helper. You can't just be out there being a jerk. You got to be a helper. And people, there are bad apples that can fake the system and get in. And oftentimes they get rooted out. Not all the times. Hopefully they do. But, I was always an officer, so it was always above my pay grade. But the ones you want in there are the guys and gals who can maintain self-control in the face of adversity, and do what needs to be done when it's time to do it. And so, yeah, is it hard? It doesn't mean it's easy to stand there while people are yelling and screaming at you. It's not. It's not easy for anybody, but we do it. One of the things you got to remember is they don't know you from Adam. This is not personal. You're going to go home. They're not going to remember who you are, unless you are like Derek Chauvin and do something that the whole world sees. But if you're just standing online and people are yelling at you and calling you a blue-eyed devil and you're a racist and all this stuff, that person doesn't know me from Adam. They don't know that my grandson's half black, which he is. But to them, I'm a racist. Like, I couldn't love a kid more than I do this kid, but yeah, okay, I'm a racist because I'm here in uniform. Like, you don't know my backstory. You don't know why I came and did to do this job. So yeah, it is difficult. It's difficult for all of us. The thing I didn't like about how we responded to the George Floyd riots was I'm okay with, I get people hate cops, and I was arrested a couple of times before I came on, so I didn't always have a positive attitude towards cops either. It was 8th grade, minor possession petty theft, and then when I was 19 in the Army, minor possession of alcohol. whatever. My background investigator saw that and he's like, well, I see since then you've had a long time of not getting pulled over and you've gotten married and you've got kids now, you've matured. We're not expecting perfect people. We just want to see you matured past this. So, but what I didn't like, what none of us really liked is, I don't mind taking the abuse, but let me be a cop. If people are throwing stuff at us, that's an assault. We should go after them and arrest them. Now we had the self-control to stand by, but the discouraging thing about our response that year is they didn't let us do our job. At least a lot of us. Some guys were able to do their job, but a lot of us had to just stand there and take the abuse, and that was really discouraging. And it just really brought morale down. I want to be a cop. I came here to be a cop to, I'm not taking it personal, but if you assault me, you're going to jail. I don't care what you call me, whatever. I'm not freedom of speech, First Amendment, totally fine. But once you lay hands on me or once you throw something at me, now you've crossed the line. We can't have that. But Newsom was very intent on making sure that none of us did anything. In fact, we were told he's looking to make an example of one of you, so please don't respond. So nothing like having your boss just going, oh man, I can't wait to use one of these guys as a national example. I'm gonna, discipline him. So,
where do you think where does that come from though? Like, why would someone who is in charge of the state have that mindset, have that, and say stuff like that? Where is it? Is it just being so ideologically on this political spectrum?
None want to know about our governor. I don't think he's ideological. He likes to portray himself as that. He's really not. He is a politician through and through. It's whatever makes him look good, period. So, in private, he's really nice. The guys who guard him, he's nice to them. He's not a jerk to us in private, but the public persona, he'll do whatever it takes to promote himself. And of course, he's already positioned himself. I think you'd have to be blind not to see it, that he's positioning himself for a run at the presidency the next election cycle, 2028. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. So and he's been running for president since he was mayor of San Francisco. That was obvious, he was on the national stage then. He was the first one back in 2004 conducting gay weddings before it was legalized, So he was running for president then. Everybody's known it. And we knew it was just, hey, if he could use one of us to further his agenda and to further his career, he's going to do it.
But when you look at that, you just said that he was conducting those kind of marriages back when it was really, but that's not the majority of America. So no. Who is he trying to win over by doing that?
Probably the Democratic National Committee. Because the DNC is the one who picks who's going to be the Democratic nominee for president.
Okay, so if you line up kind of with where they want, then...
And they weren't there then, but he was kind of pushing it forward, so this is a way to get on the national stage to, look, I've been doing this for a long time. Now we're in 2024. That's 20 years ago. I'm OG. I was doing this before all y'all were doing it. So he's got, now it's normalized. I mean, he was kind of visionary in that. I mean, he is a very clever and smart politician when it comes to that. I don't think he's smart in every single way, but he does know how to run a campaign. Like the first time he ran for governor, the way our state works is the two people with the highest vote tally during the midterm or during the primaries get on the ballot for the election, whether they're both Democrats or Republican. So when he was running for governor the first time, he had really slick ads for the Republican running, and it made him look so awesome. He's pro Second Amendment. It wasn't a commercial that was insidious. It was like, oh yeah, this guy's great, and I'm Gavin Newsom, and I oppose him. So he knew what he was doing. He made this guy look great to all the Republicans. So this guy got more votes than the other Democrat. So Gavin eliminated his Democratic opposition by really just making this guy look great because he knew that he would have more Democratic votes than this guy could get Republican votes. in the election cycle. So he's played that trick more than once, and it works.
And you
So
think that can work in 2028?
I don't think it's going to work the same way. No, because that's on a national scale, and I think we've seen enough people in this country reject that kind of leftward slant in this country that I think it's going to be. I think that right now, from what I'm seeing inside the Democratic Party, they're having a civil war,
Yeah.
and trying to figure out who's to blame and which way do we go.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of fun to watch, but
Yeah.
but I don't think he's gonna. I think because of what just happened, unless something dramatic happens, which anything can happen between now and then. If we're on the same trajectory, I don't think he's got a chance.
You know-
I would have said maybe it depends on which way this election went. He would have had a better chance, but after the results of this last election, I'd say he does not have a good chance.
Yeah, I think like, okay, my common sense is saying that, okay, if he had intentions of running for president, even back then, why not use the opportunity when you are the governor of a state to elevate the state and to show the whole country that, hey, look what I did with California. This is what I can do with the United States of America.
Yeah,
He hasn't done it.
no,
Not even close. I mean, it's the opposite.
It's
when you
the
look at
opposite.
how many people have left,
yeah,
how many businesses have left, what's happening in the major cities.
yeah. He's trying to do that, though. He is trying to, but it's not working. And so he's got 2 years left to figure out how to turn this sinking ship around. And I don't know how he's going to do it, but it's what he's been doing right now is just, I mean, he's just brought this state down. I mean, Jerry Brown, I was never a Jerry Brown supporter, but I knew Gavin was waiting in the wings and what he wanted versus what Jerry Brown did. I mean, Jerry Brown vetoed a lot of leftward leaning agendas in the legislature. So he acted kind of as a stopgap a lot when he was governor. And so he wasn't the best governor. I would have never voted for him, but if I had to choose between him or Gavin, I'd choose Jerry Brown 100 times out of 100.
Yeah. Well, how about we turn the corner a little bit and start talking about a little bit about we can connect. We're talking about our state of California. Why don't we talk a little bit about the CCW laws here, and do you think that it's going to get tougher for people in the state to concealed carry or to get a license to?
I don't think it is. The 2022 Bruin versus New York decision that was given by the Supreme Court, basically they mandated every state shall be a shall issue state, meaning, well, let's back up a little bit. Before that case, a lot of states, New York, of course, and then California included, a lot of leftward states required that if you wanted a concealed carry permit, you had to show just cause. If you just said because I want one, that wasn't good enough. You know, like I work in a dangerous neighborhood, or I've had death threats against me. You had to show some reason why you felt the need to carry concealed weapon. Well, that got appealed to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said, you can't do that with the First Amendment, and you don't do it with the First Amendment. You don't do it with the Third Amendment. You don't ask people why they want to exercise their Fourth or the Fifth Amendment rights. It's inconsistent to ask people why they want to exercise their Second Amendment. You can't do it. In fact, you shall issue unless there's just cause why they can't have one. So now, the state attorney general, Rob Bonta, he sent a letter to all the sheriffs saying cease and desist. No longer ask that. You can only ask moral character questions now. Basically, are you addicted to drugs or alcohol? Do you have any domestic violence issues? Have you been convicted of a felony? Those kinds of things. Just moral character questions. Are you a danger to yourself or others? Which is fine. And so so now it's actually easier than it's ever been to get a concealed carry permit. However, the state of California, their response to the Bruin decision was to come up with Senate Bill 2, or what we call SB 2, which is basically what they said is fine. we will let you have your CCW if you pass your background checks. However, we'll virtually make it impossible for you to carry almost anywhere except on a road, period, in your car. And so they came out with SB2, and it'd be easier for me to tell you where you could carry versus where you couldn't carry. Because pretty much once you go down the list, and you went through that in our class, it's literally everywhere except a rest stop. You could carry in a rest stop. And any building that had a "you can carry a gun here" sign fixed to it. Other than that, you couldn't carry in churches. You couldn't carry in any business building. You couldn't carry anywhere in this state unless it was a rest stop, or you're on the freeway, or in a building that had a sign posted saying guns are allowed. That was appealed immediately. The Ninth Circuit put a stay on it until they reviewed it. And so they were supposed to review it in March. They didn't. They were going to review it in June. They didn't. Then they reviewed it in September. And they basically split the baby down the middle. So there are certain places that make no sense, like playgrounds and parks, you can't carry. Libraries, you can't carry. Make it make sense. I don't. But this is kind of, to me, it was a temper tantrum by our state legislatures and the governor against the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court made it very clear you can't do that. And in fact, it's being appealed now. Even splitting the baby down the middle, it's being appealed. It'll go to the Supreme Court. Who knows how long it's going to take to get there, and it'll be overturned. But as far as getting the concealed carry permit, unless you got a felony in your background, domestic violence, or if you've been arrested or turned yourself in for 5150, which is mental insanity, it's pretty easy to get now. It's just depending on what county you're in, there's a waiting period. But it's the actual act of getting it is pretty easy. That you do have to. They did up the requirements, and that was not appealed by the gun rights advocacy groups. For a lot of counties, it used to be 8 hours. Now it's 16. Sacramento County was always 16 hours, but Placer County and several other counties around here were 8 hours, and now it's 16. And they do require an hour of mental health that you have to go through. And people who renew, and you have to renew every 2 years. Before, you never had to take a written test for your renewal. Now you have to take a written test. So there are some additional things which I don't have a problem with, because those are good refreshers. And, being in peer support in law enforcement, actually we dealt with mental health with cops, guys and gals who carried guns. And so that is in my wheelhouse, and I have no problem. It is mental health from an aspect of gun owners for gun owners, by gun owners for gun owners. So it's that aspect. It's not the liberal touchy-feely, guns are bad, icky, So we try to cover issues that gun owners face and how you can get help without getting your guns permanently taken away. So, overall, I'd say it's easier now than it's ever been, though the state's trying to make it sound like it's harder. And they're trying to make it sound like it's harder to discourage people from getting it, but it's not. It's not hard. It's actually really easy. If you have 16 hours to invest, you can get it pretty easily.
Absolutely, yeah. And last month, Trump basically promised, it's called
Reciprocity.
Reciprocity, yes. I'm not good with that word.
Yeah, it's a foreign word. I never even heard of that word before I got in this business. So, yeah, reciprocity. What's that again? Yeah.
So basically, it would work the same as a driver's license, right? You have a driver's license in one state, you can drive into another state, and that driver's license is valid in the other state. Is this something you think is going to pass, and is this good?
If he signs an executive order, it's law.
It's law.
But it's law as long as he's around, which that's the thing, is what happens in 4 years when he's not president. Unless another president gets in who repeals it, and another president can easily repeal it if Congress doesn't pass a national reciprocity law, it sticks. But if Congress passes a national reciprocity law, then it doesn't matter what the president does, it sticks. So, yes, I think it's good. I do agree that he said Second Amendment rights don't end when you cross state lines. He's right. They don't end when you cross a state line. I remember when before 9/11 happened, believe it or not, if you were in law enforcement, like in California, for example, not every state in the union recognized law enforcement credentials. So I could not carry in all 50 states before 9/11. After 9/11, Congress got together and they created HR 218, House Resolution 218, which gave reciprocity in all 50 states for any law enforcement, current or retired. So I could carry then in all 50 states. But before 9/11, I, as a cop, even couldn't carry in all 50 states. So it's something that can be done by Congress. They just have to have the will to do it. Or the Supreme Court could give a ruling, which basically makes it very clear that which they can do. I don't think we need a new law because the law is in the Second Amendment. We just need somebody to basically push back again and say enough of your phony little laws that are unconstitutional. You can't do that. You cannot violate the Constitution. If I have to, I can't. I need to spell this out for you. I'm going to spell it out. All 50 states. If one person has a permit in this state, they can carry in all 50 states. Now, you'll hear people in the gun community, and I agree with this, that say that you don't need even a permit because the permit is the Second Amendment. Why even go for a permit? I agree. I do think that the Second Amendment is our permit. That being said, right now, you and I, we live in California. I don't have the finances to fight the legal fees of what the state is going to do if I don't have a permit I'm out there carrying. So, Lord willing, one day the Supreme Court will rule that no permits are needed because the permit is the Second Amendment. Until that day, and I do believe that would be a right ruling, we take it incrementally and try to keep pushing and pushing. And really, we've been seeing a lot of that in the last 10 years. People in a lot of states have been pushing their state legislature to pass a constitutional carry, which means the Constitution is their permit and they don't need to get a permit from the state. And a lot of states, I don't have the number off the top of my head, but there are a lot of states who have passed constitutional carry. A lot of them because they just kept getting worn down by the citizens demanding they put it back on the ballot and vote on it. And so they just said, fine, we'll just pass it so you guys stop bugging us about this. They just wore the state legislatures down. And really, that's what needs to happen. The people need to rise up and just wear the legislatures down by just demanding that they pass a constitutional carry, just simply saying the Constitution's our permit. We don't need your permission. Until that happens to all 50 states, a lot of states like California still require a permit, but it is pretty easy to get it.
Where do you think we would be if we didn't have like people who are actually fighting for these rights and constantly putting out?
Well, I think if you are a student history, it's pretty easy to see where we'd be. Look at every nation that has outlawed the right for people to bear arms, carry arms, and what happens is the government always, not sometimes, not most of the times, always, and you know this from where you come from, always tends towards tyrannical. And that is the reason why the Second Amendment was put in the Constitution. And you get our legislatures, our lawmakers, a lot of them like to say, well, they didn't have AR-15s then, so you don't need an AR-15 to go hunting. Well, the Second Amendment wasn't there for hunting. I'm sorry. If you don't know what the Second Amendment was for, either if you deny what it was, the original intent was for, either you're a liar or you're very ignorant. And if you're that ignorant, you shouldn't be making laws. The Second Amendment was written right on the heels of the Revolutionary War. What was one of the big factors in the Revolutionary War? Well, the British government was trying to confiscate arms from the patriots, from the colonialists. And they had to resort to hiding them in barns and things like that. And to prohibit the government from ever getting tyrannical again, they put a little clause in our Constitution, the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment is actually there to push back against the government, the citizens. That's the protection of the citizens against a tyrannical government. Yes. And I know the lawmakers don't like to hear it, but go read your history. It's not there to go hunting. It's to push back. And so our founding fathers are giving us permission to push back with arms if they get tyrannical. I'm sorry if you don't like that, but that is a fact.
That is a fact. And I think a lot of people do not know this, especially the younger generation.
Yeah.
They go to these our nice schools.
Yeah, that don't teach about our history.
Yeah.
Or they teach a wrong history.
History.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you think? I've seen some of the stickers and posters where people say, stop gun violence.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason, like I can't really understand that. Like how does someone stop gun violence, and what exactly is gun violence?
Well, I mean, I guess the interpretation's in the eye of the beholder. But I mean, I also want to stop gun violence. I don't like gun violence. And the only way you can really stop gun violence is with a gun. The only thing that can stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. You're not going to be able to stop somebody with a gun if you've got flowers or sticks of gum, or if you do a dance off, if you ever watched like the Babylon Bee, you know, or if you have a sign posted, no guns here, where this is a gun-free zone. Oh, well, then it's not a fair fight. I better go somewhere else. You know, my experience in law enforcement, I was in 27 years, criminals don't care about laws. And we'd always joke around in law enforcement that criminals are job security for us. If it wasn't for criminals, we'd be put out of business because, you know, majority of people in this country are law-abiding citizens, you know. You know, we're going to get their speeding tickets or stop sign or red light tickets, you know. But, you know, cops, by and large, we're not, you know, dealing with the vast majority of the population. You know, most people are just going about their day, abiding by the law, maybe going a little bit over the speed limit. Not a big deal. I mean, what's a ticket anyway? You know, it's not that big of a deal. But the people who are criminals don't care about the laws, and those are the people that we have to deal with. Those are the ones who are terrorizing innocent people in neighborhoods, and those are the ones that people are calling 911 on. And so those are the people we typically address. And gun violence, well, we have stats to prove this. This is not even open for debate. You know, if people who are anti-gun would actually even look at the stats, and I don't have them in front of me, but they're easy to access, and our politicians have them too. So when our politicians, whenever there's gun violence, and they try, the knee-jerk reaction with a lot of them is we need to take guns away from law-abiding citizens. Well, they know for a fact that that person right there was not a law-abiding citizen, and taking guns away from all of us wouldn't have stopped that because he would have got that anyway. Oftentimes they get them illegally, not always. Sometimes a criminal can get them legally, but the stopping gun violence, we have statistics that show that in places in this country where there is a high percentage of gun ownership and people who carry guns, violent crime drastically reduces. That is a fact. And it's a very well-known fact. It's an FBI fact. It's not even like it's just the people on the right who are saying this. It's like, I don't like the FBI. Okay, most local law enforcement doesn't like FBI. That's their stats. We do know that in the cities, the big cities, this is where it always happens. Big cities have some of the highest, tightest gun control restrictions
Like
in the
Chicago.
nation. Chicago, L.A., San Francisco. That's where the highest amount of violent crime happens. Well, when you have gun control in those cities, the law-abiding citizens are going to abide by it because they don't want to be arrested. They don't want to violate the law. And so the criminals don't care, and they do target areas that we call our soft targets. A soft target is a target where I can go in here, I know no one is carrying a gun, and so I can get away with whatever I want because no one's going to stop me. And that's exactly what happens. And so in the big cities, they have really tight gun control restrictions. violent crime goes way up. And so you have to ask yourself, is it a gun problem or is it something else? And I think what we need to do is people just need us to maybe step back. And I think we all, whether we're on the left or right politically, we all want the same thing. Mostly. I don't want to take guns away. I know the people on the left do, but what's the end goal? We want safety. We want security. We want gun violence to end. Like people who are gun rights advocates, we don't want gun violence. We're actually opposed to gun right or to not gun rights to gun violence.
Yes.
And when we're teaching classes, all of our instructors, we teach that using your gun should be a last resort. We want to develop a mindset where we're avoiding conflict to begin with, not going, well, I got a gun, so I'm just going to walk into a group of gangbangers, and if they mess with me, I'm just going to start shooting. Like, no, you don't want to walk into a group of gangbangers.
By the way, I was really surprised that in our training, in your guys' training that you did earlier this year, how much emphasis you guys made on situational awareness.
Yeah.
I was surprised. I was shocked.
Yeah.
A lot of the training goes there, and that right there, it just in itself is so important.
Right. Yeah, and I think most people don't think about that, or especially people who've never gone through the training. They think, well, all we're doing is just teaching people how to kill people. No, I mean, I do say, hey, I'm going to teach you how to shoot a gun. I'm going to teach you how to shoot a gun well. And can a gun used in the right context kill someone? Absolutely. But I'm going to teach it to you as it's a tool of last resort. It should be the last resort you ever have. Carry it with you. But your first thought should be, how do I avoid potential conflict to begin with? And so it's developing a mindset where you're avoiding conflict. Best way to never have to use your gun and possibly die or go to jail is to never put yourself in a position where you have to use your gun. Now, there are times where you've done everything right and still you can't avoid it. We can't control every situation in this world. But if we can minimize the possibility of encountering a violent encounter, we ought to do it. And we try to teach our students that, developing this mindset of awareness. So
yeah. One of the things that I noticed is the rise of gun ownership lately, especially in the minority groups. Why do you think that is right now?
I think the reasons vary. However, probably, not probably, one of the two big reasons that we're finding right now, the minority community in big cities are feeling the squeeze from illegal immigrants. So if you look at town hall meetings in Chicago, you have a lot of black folks who are calling out Mayor Johnson. That, hey, you're favoring people who shouldn't even be here over us. You're giving them money, and we're left in dangerous positions here. So I think one is our open border, which has been a complete disaster. That is causing a lot of anxiety, not just in the minority communities, it's everywhere, but I think they're really feeling it because a lot of these illegal immigrants are being shipped to the inner city where they are. And so they're feeling the squeeze more than a lot of other people. And that's concerning. Like that they shouldn't have to feel that. And then coinciding with that is the rise in crime. A lot of big cities, the district attorneys they've been backed by George Soros. And George Soros, one of his goals is to get district attorneys who don't fight crime, basically. They go after people who defend themselves, against violent criminals. And it's like an upside down world. It's a clown world. And he figured that he doesn't have to change laws if he just changes the people who enforce the laws. So, the district attorney doesn't prosecute on majority of violent crimes. And so these criminals, they're arrested by the cops, but they get let loose right away. And they're out in the street terrorizing the citizens again. This last election cycle, I think I saw the stat that 20 George Soros district attorneys were fired by the people. They had enough. L.A. was one of them. Gascon in L.A. He was
Mm-hmm.
a huge mistake, and he was ousted. And so I think there's a lot of hope. Believe we're going to have a lot of hope in this country come next year with new district attorneys put in. Not everywhere, though. There's still big cities that still have their George Soros district attorney in place. And I could go down a rabbit trail of George Soros and what he's trying to do at our nation. But
Well, actually, I wanted to go down a little bit of that
okay,
because, I'm sure people will wonder and ask, okay, why is this guy? I mean, his name is floating around everywhere, and
yeah.
I've heard about him for a few years now. But what do you think is the goal here? Why is that one man is so interested
Yeah.
in shifting in such a way, like these things in our country?
Well, he is part of the World Economic Forum, and that's this is not even something that anybody's trying to keep secret. You could YouTube it, Google it. World Economic Forum has been run by Klaus Schwab.
Mm-hmm.
I believe he recently stepped down. I don't know who stood in or came in his place, but if you look at Klaus Schwab, he looks like a typical Hollywood supervillain.
Yeah.
Bald white guy with a German accent, thick
That
German
voice, oh
accent.
my gosh.
I mean, just like all the bad guys come from Germany, right? I mean, so it just, but Bill Gates is in at World Economic Forum. King Charles is in the World
Mm-hmm.
Economic Forum. This is not just like lightweights. These are some of the top people in the world that are in the World Economic Forum. The World Economic Forum has made it very clear that they want to have a great reset in the world by 2030, and they've advertised this. This is not conspiracy theory, tinfoil hat stuff anymore. They're like out in the open about this stuff. If you haven't heard about this stuff, it's very easy to Google. Prove me wrong. If you think I'm just making this stuff up, just Google who is Klaus Schwab. What is the World Economic Forum? What is the Agenda 2030? What is the Great Reset? Google it. Look it up. It's all over the place now. In fact, Klaus Schwab wrote a couple books. One of them was called COVID-19 and the Great Reset. He was hoping that would be the Great Reset. Well, the Great Reset is the collapsing of world governments so that we could form a one world government. That's the Great Reset. And their goal was by 2030, you will own nothing and you'll be happy.
I heard that.
They have a commercial about this guy, big old smile. You're going to own nothing, be happy about it because we're going to own it all. And so they had a couple of strategies to do this, to implement this. One of them was open borders for all of Western Europe and for America. And this is why we have the open border crisis we do. Everything's connected. All of this is connected. I think if you just take a step back and look at the last 10 years and ask yourself, what in the world is going on? Because I think everybody can feel it. Like everything just gotten crazy. You can't explain it. There's an explanation. It really, and I think ultimately it's satanic. I think the person who's really at the head of this is Satan. But as far as world leaders go, this goes back to the World Economic Forum. And Klaus Schwab has been around. I mean, he's an old guy, so he's been around a lot longer than this, but I think the World Economic Forum started in like 73, 74,
Mm-hmm.
early 70s. But the couple of ways, strategies that they've developed. One is by flooding the borders with illegal immigrants. Now, why would that? What does that got to do with anything? Well, it's really hard for a country to have unity if you have people from all over the world who don't like that country. And what they know what that's going to cause. It's going to cause mass chaos and civil war in those countries because eventually the natives are going to say, what in the heck is going on? We're letting all these people in. You're giving them all this money. We don't have money for ourselves. You're giving them money. And it creates a lot of tension between a lot of different groups. And there's that old saying, divide and conquer. And they've really learned the strategy. So that's one thing that they're doing. Another thing is inflationary tactics. If you can spend the economy in each country to where and just print money, the dollar, each country's currency becomes more and more worthless. And it gets to a point where you're almost like the Weimar Republic in Germany right before World War II, where people were taking the German dollar and just using it as wallpaper. That was that worthless. You'd have to take a bucket, or not a bucket, a wheelbarrow of the German dollar, if you will, to go get a loaf of bread. So if they just print more and more money, eventually those economies won't be able to sustain that kind of momentum, and they're going to collapse. And the hope is that people will clamor for a government to take over to solve the problem. So what does the government do? The government first creates the problem, and then they come up with a solution. That is an age-old tactic, and that's what's been going on right now with the World Economic Forum. And they got tons of videos out there discussing this, and they do call themselves the elite. They actually refer to themselves that way. They believe, Bill Gates is on record saying we'll be able to reduce the world population through vaccines. And I'm not an anti-vaxxer, but it's interesting. He's bought a lot of stock in vaccines. And he's saying openly that we can reduce the world population by vaccines. You tell me what he means by that. That doesn't make me really excited to take the next vaccine when he's saying that kind of stuff. But their goal is to reduce the world population and to collapse world governments so that there is a clamoring for a one world government, one world currency. Whether that happens in our lifetime is to be determined, but that seems to be their goal. And their goal was interrupted by the election of Donald Trump in 2016. And so with Biden coming in 2020, they had to accelerate that goal, which is why you see a really big, rapid decline with like the border and stuff. And if people remember, Biden's slogan, Trump's slogan was "Make America Great Again." Biden's slogan was "Build Back Better." Well, look that up. Where did that come from? Actually, the World Economic Forum. He was using the World Economic Forum slogan for his slogan, if you will. So if we could even say he was doing it, who knows? He was running from his basement. I think everybody else was running his campaign for him. But I think George Soros, he's not just doing this willy-nilly. He's got an end agenda in mind, and it is to collapse our dollar like he collapsed the British dollar. He did that already. He's collapsed the British dollar. And he's very smart, very savvy businessman. And so I think that's a little bit about George Soros.
Yeah. I'm looking at what's happening in Europe, and I think I just read a story that in Europe, or one of the countries in Europe, the name Muhammad is the number one name.
I believe that just came up today, and that's in Britain.
In Britain?
Yes, in Britain.
Some people visiting Germany came back a year ago or so. They're like, this ain't Germany anymore.
Yeah.
It's not the same country.
No.
And I do feel, and I see that this is exactly what they're trying to do with the United States, because I think that it's probably the biggest hurdle in their way. The biggest problem is the American spirit, patriotism, and look what they're already creating, these conflicts within the country, right? Like we're seeing a whole bunch of people, even Congress women, pro-Palestine, against the nation of Israel, and like all these conflicts in the universities, right? Like they're saying that 95% or 96% of professors in the university are all liberal.
I think that's a conservative number.
But I'll give it that. Like I'll do it.
I don't even think we should use the word liberal anymore, because classical liberalism still advocated for free speech, even if they disagree with you.
Radical left.
Yes. I think liberal is too nice a word anymore.
All right. Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah. And I really do feel that there was some sort of plan with like the COVID, and I feel like that didn't really happen. But now like they're saying it in the open. Like Klaus Schwab, he just not too long ago was talking about how it's going to be inevitable that we're going to have this cyber attack,
Yes.
and all of the grid, everything's going to come down. And
Right.
of course, like one can only imagine
Yeah.
what. And then like the conflict right now with between Ukraine and Russia, and how careless our president, our government is, and not just our government, other countries, to just provoke this guy who apparently has the most nukes.
Yeah. The largest nuclear power in the world. Yeah.
And then let's say they succeed with, I mean, thank God for our Supreme Court, right? That is still, I mean, with especially we're talking going back to the gun rights in this country, right? And what they've been able to do in the last few years. If not for the Supreme Court, if not for Donald Trump, for example, our Supreme Court would not be what it is right now.
Correct.
That would have changed the nation
He had
significantly.
three nominees that he appointed. You imagine Hillary Clinton putting 3 nominees on there, we would have been done.
That's just crazy. And now with this election, what happened? I think that the social media, right? People having access to information through various platforms online. In one way, it has some negative, but at the same time, it's really opening up a lot of people's eyes. Like Elon Musk
Yeah.
buying Twitter
Yeah.
during this election. If not for X, if Twitter would have been what Twitter was during the 2020 election,
Yep.
what do you think would have happened?
I think it would. We might be looking at a second Biden term. He probably wouldn't have even stepped down from running. So I think they would have been able to cover it up with even that debate as bad as it was. That really was the tell right there. The debate. They had him out there earlier than any other presidential debates ever happened, and that was an inside coup to get rid of him because they didn't have 100% of the media apparatus. X was out there, and in all these podcasters out there too, which it turns out that more people are turning to podcasts and to X and they're turning off. Most people don't even have cable. I haven't had cable for years. Even if I wanted to watch cable television and cable news, I couldn't. I don't have it. I don't want it. But most people are like that now. I got Netflix. I got Amazon. Like, what do I need cable for? It's like commercials. I don't even watch a commercial.
Yeah.
So the mainstream media is really in their death throes. But they had the monopoly on information in the 2020 election. That and the censorship regime that went into place with all the social media stuff. With Elon, without him buying X, I think the political landscape would be looking a lot different in 2025 than what it's projected to look like.
Yeah. So the last thing we left off on the conversation of in your training, you guys train a lot about situational awareness, de-escalation. Can you briefly talk about the importance of that and maybe like some of the things part of your training, why that is important, just for people to at least to know and understand?
There have been studies done on criminals, violent criminals in prison. Like, why'd you do what you did? We know why. If they assaulted somebody they knew, we know why. It was a personal vendetta. We get that. But really, the question was always, why? If you assaulted somebody you didn't know, why'd you do that? And the overwhelming response on these studies was they looked like an easy victim. Their head was down, their eyes were down, they weren't looking at me. I knew if they had to identify me in a photo lineup, it was going to be pretty difficult to do. And so that's why I attacked that person, just looking for an easy victim. And violent criminals almost always look for an easy victim. That's why big cities are so target-rich environments. So one of the things we teach our students to do is to not look like an easy victim. And it's actually pretty easy to implement. It doesn't take much to make yourself unattractive to a violent criminal. Keeping your head up, your eyes up, looking at people, not mean mugging them, staring them down, but just visually contacting people, excuse me. Easier to do for men. We have more of a tendency, our protective nature, not all guys, but more guys than not, have an attitude of, I'm going to keep my shoulders up in public, head up. But when you're a female, a lot of females keep their heads down. They walk by a man, they kind of diminutive, if you will. And so we really emphasize just little things like that, like keeping your head up, making eye contact with people, and being aware of your surroundings, being aware of what's in front of you, to the left and to your right of you. And so one of the exercises we do is teaching people what their peripheral vision is, and being aware of what's in that peripheral vision when you're out in public at all times. And also keeping your head on a swivel, looking behind you every once in a while, not being paranoid. This is one thing we really want to emphasize with our students is we don't want them to be paranoid. There's no reason to be paranoid. If you're just practicing being aware, being alert in public, you don't have to be paranoid. You're just aware of your surroundings and, hey, something looks off there. Maybe I should walk the opposite way. I don't know if it is off, but I'm going to trust my sixth instinct. And I do believe that we all have a sixth instinct, and this is something that's not natural. I think it's supernatural. And in the naturalistic world in which we live, where we deny God's existence, scientists don't talk about that because that would presuppose a creator to say we have a sixth sense, but we do. We all have this instinct about us, and some of us recognize it, and some of us ignore it. Well, that thing that makes the hairs in the back of your head stand up, that right there, like something's off with this. We teach our students, you need to trust that. If you have not trusted that in the past, you need to start trusting that. Because, hey, maybe there's nothing going on, but you just turned around and walked the opposite way. Who knows if there was anything there? You'll never find out, and who cares? You get to go home tonight, put your head on your pillow, get to see the ones you loved. You're not going to worry about dying or going to jail. And so we teach just basic awareness of that and what to do when you're going places, how you should position yourself in a restaurant, in a movie theater, when you're walking around the mall, when you're driving. How do you detect if people are following you? There's ways that we can actually detect if people are following us. We teach that whether you're walking or you're driving.
By the way, did you see what happened to Brian Thompson, the CEO of United Healthcare years ago?
Yeah.
Did you see the video?
I did, yes. I did. That was, shocking.
What do you think about
well, it looked personal. It seems personal. The 3 bullet shells, I just read it this morning, actually. He inscribed, I think they said he engraved on the shells, the casing of the round.
Oh, wow.
Some 3 different words that had to do with something about lawsuits that typically, like the 3 words that most healthcare companies use to avoid paying insurance out to their people. And so those were inscribed in the casings.
Oh, wow.
I can't remember what they are because it's not my wheelhouse, but it made sense. And anyway, so this to the law enforcement now, it doesn't look random. This is clearly a targeted. He knew who he was going after and got this guy.
So when we're talking about like situational awareness and stuff, did you see anything in there that you're like, he could have done something?
Keeping his head on a swivel, looking back, So, when you're walking, and I don't know, we only have a short little video clip, so I don't know where he was coming from, how long he was. It looks like he on a sidewalk coming up to the corner of a building. I don't know if he just walked out of that building or if he's walking a long ways. But either way, let's say he's just walking out of the building. You walk out of the building, you're looking left and right and across the street. Is there anything that looks suspicious here? Is there anybody that's just sitting in a car looking like they're casing out the joint, waiting for me to walk this way? Or if he's just walking down the sidewalk, he should have been like swiveling his head, just keeping it on a swivel, looking back behind him. Is there somebody following me? In that case, you see somebody following you. What you do is you run, and if you have to take cover, you take cover.
Yeah.
So could it have saved his life? I mean, anybody can get off a shot. So I mean, what we're always taught in law enforcement is if somebody wants to take you out, they can take you out. There's 101 ways to kill somebody if you really wanted to kill them, and you can only stop that threat for so long before your number is punched, if you will. But you can reduce the likelihood of somebody getting the upper hand on you if you implement those things, keeping the high, what we call like a high visual horizon, looking at the horizon, scanning the area, keeping your head on a swivel, being alert and aware of your surroundings. Those really go a long way towards reducing the likelihood of you being a victim. And of course, carrying a gun. If somebody's pulling out that gun, that person then, if you did turn around and they pull out a gun, well, good luck running. You can't outrun a bullet, so you're going to have to stand your ground at that point. Even in California, we're not a stand your ground state, but if somebody pulls a gun out, they've effectively taken away your ability to retreat.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not illegal to defend yourself if somebody's got a gun. So, and then at the end of the day, even if it's illegal, but it's not, but even if it was, would you rather die a law-abiding citizen and be buried by 6, or take your chances of the court, still be alive, and be judged by 12? That's one of the things I always emphasize to my students as well.
That's a great point.
Is you've got to decide at the end of the day, and the only time you're going to use that gun is if your life is in immediate danger or somebody else's life. If it's life-threatening, it's either death or great grave bodily harm, and it's imminent. It's right now. It's not a fear of future harm. And if I come to you right now and say, when you come back here tomorrow, I'm going to kill you. I didn't say I was going to kill you now, so you can't just pull a gun on me now because I'm telling you tomorrow I'm going to kill you. But if I pull out a gun, or if I just said I'm going to kill you right now and it looks like I'm pulling a gun, well, you can hopefully get the drop on me and take me out before I take you out. Hopefully it's the last resort and it never comes to that. But in this case right here, without more video cameras and footage, it's really hard for me to know how he could have given himself a better tactical advantage. Just all we have is that little clip of him coming to the edge of a building and his back's to the suspect and he gets shot 3 times. But the guy shot him once and I guess his gun jams. And you could see him stagger off outside of the camera.
Yeah.
And they're not showing us anything more than that. So I don't know if that was a fatal shot or not, but even if it's not a fatal shot, that's where you get the gun out now. And he's trying to fix that jam. You turn around and get the shot on that guy.
I think by looking at it, he shot him in the leg first.
Yeah.
By the way, how his leg kind of went down, maybe. And by the way, how the barrel of the gun looked.
Yeah. And, the reality is you get shot, you fight. You fight to the end.
Yeah.
You may not be a fighter. Most people aren't.
Well, Trump is.
Yeah. Yeah. I teach, businesses how to respond to an active shooter threat. Most people aren't going around carrying guns. So what can you do as a civilians if somebody comes in your building and starts shooting? And the motto is run, hide, fight. And one of the things I when I start my little pep talk with them is, before I say anything else, I want you to picture in your mind somebody or some people that you want to go home and see, or maybe your kids don't live with you anymore, but you want to see after today. You have to have those people in your mind, because if something like this happens and you're left with no other option other than to fight, you can't say to yourself, well, I'm not that person. I'm not that kind of a person. Well, then you're dead. So they have to be enough motivation for you to say, you know what, there's a vase right there. I'm going to pick that up and smack that guy over the head if I have to. I'm going to use whatever it takes, whatever weapon of opportunity I have. Could be the chair, could be the printer, could be your tripod, something, anything to stop this threat. If I don't have a gun, I'm going to stop this threat because I want to go home and see my loved ones. And I'll be damned if I let that person stop me by killing me. I'm not going to do it. You've got to have that mindset. Everybody does, because you never know when it's going to come to you. And that's the thing. These active shooters incidents and scenarios are happening more and more. And so people have to develop a mindset, whether they're carrying a gun or not, that they're going to do whatever it takes to defend themselves. And it may initially mean run. One of the things you want to do if you're running, you need to increase your distance from the person who's shooting and you tremendously. And you want to do it by running in a zigzag pattern away from that person. You're making yourself twice as hard, 3 times as hard, 9 times as hard, 12 times as hard to hit. The further out you go and the more you zigzag. It is hard to hit a moving target when you're not under stress. That person who's shooting at you is under stress, and it's very difficult. Now, can they get a lucky shot off? Yes, they can, but you're making it more difficult for them. So, that'd be the first thing. If you have to run in a zigzag formation as far away as you can, and try to find some place to hide. The natural tendency for most people when an active shooter happens is they freeze. We've done studies on this. The most natural or most common reaction is people just freeze. They don't move. You've got to move. You got to run. You got to hide, and if necessary, you've got to fight. If you got no other choice, you got to fight.
I noticed after the training for myself, I'm looking at things much differently, and I have a completely different awareness than I used to, especially if I'm there with my wife, my kids. Whenever we go to certain events, I'm always scanning, I'm looking, I'm thinking like, okay, if anything happens, where are we going? What's happening, right? Like it's just now kind of in here, Yeah. And I think it's important. One question I did have, this is more like specific. When you are carrying concealed, right? If you are wearing some like a little bit tight jacket or sweater, and someone looking can kind of notice something's bulging out, is that a problem, or is that not a big deal?
It depends on where you go. San Francisco, it's illegal to imprint. So we call
That's what it's called,
imprinting.
imprint?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not illegal typically. However, I would emphasize the need to want to not stand out. Because that's not going to, just because it's not illegal doesn't mean that people aren't going to call it in. And so to avoid that scenario where the police are coming or the sheriffs are coming and saying, "Hey, do you got a gun?" Go through that whole rigmarole. It's best to find a holster that you can conceal your gun pretty easily. And there's a lot of options out there nowadays. There's tons of kind of holsters. When I got into law enforcement in the mid-'90s, there was nothing. I mean, the only thing we had was like a fanny pack. That was it. I had a dorky light blue leather fanny pack. I still have it, wearing my TiVos and my white socks and my blue jean cutoff shorts, looking like a total dork, going to the graveyard, briefing. But that's it now. They got like belly band holsters. They've got ankle holsters. They've got, they got all sorts of different kind of cool things. They got satchels, backpacks with holsters. Inside the waistband, we call them appendix holsters because they fit right in front of your appendix. And so, most gun owners go through 3 or 4 holsters before they find the right one.
Yeah.
And oftentimes they may find like a couple that they really like. It depends on the situation. It's like wintertime when I'm wearing a bulky coat and stuff. Maybe on the outside of the waistband, on the side, I like that. And it's more comfortable and I can conceal it pretty easily. But summertime, maybe either appendix or a belly band. Or women, they have one that's called flash bang, which fits right between their breasts, like in between their bra. And so literally they flash the guy and bang. And that's why it's called a flash bang. The marketing works, I think, but it's comfortable for women. They have purse holsters, Merce holsters for men. They got all sorts of stuff now. It's and they got this tactical stuff that you put on the outside of you, like if you're hiking or something. It's still in a pouch or something, but it's like right here in the center of your chest. And it's just, the sky's the limit. People are getting really creative. It's a pretty exciting time right now for the gun industry as far as what you can have for concealment. And the guns too are getting more and more concealable. So it's pretty cool.
For gun owners, what would your recommendation be as far as training, shooting? How often?
So I would recommend at least once a month at the range, 50 rounds at least, 50 to 100 rounds. That's just to maintain bare proficiency. But what I would also encourage people to do, and, I know everybody's time is limited. I mean, people are involved in all sorts of different things, sports with their kids and church and you name it. So I get it, time is limited. But if you can, I mean, at the very least, that's what I'm recommending. But if you can, try to get some advanced training out there. There's a lot of different things that you can do, and I'm an instructor with the National Rifle Association, the NRA, and the USCCA, which is the United States Concealed Carry Association. The USCCA just came out. They just developed a defensive pistol instructor program, and just went to the training. It's very, very intense, but it's designed so that we can give training to our students that measures where they are. There's no pass or fail, but it measures where they are. It's kind of like going into martial arts. You go to jiu-jitsu, you go there and you suck. But everybody sucks when they first go there. But then they give you goals and they give you measurable goals to achieve so that you can measure your progress and keep improving. Eventually you get a belt. I've never been I was a wrestler, but we never had belts for wrestlers. So I don't know. Is it white belt that you start with? I don't know. But you get your whatever, your pink belt, your purple belt, your green belt, your brown belt, your black belt, as you get better and achieve certain benchmarks. Well, that's what the USCCA has done now. And we're going to be rolling this out after the beginning of the year, probably with private lessons to begin with. But it's 5 different modules, and it is really intense. And it depends on, they want up to 6 people in a class at a time. They want it small, but we'll probably start with just 1 or 2 people tops. But if you have 3 or more people, it usually takes 3 to 4 hours for each module. They say it might take 2 hours if you have 1 or 2 people. We'll see. I haven't reproduced this yet. I'm teaching some of the old stuff, but I'm pretty excited to do this because we can start measuring where you're at and writing down, objectable goals that you can achieve to progress. So those kinds of programs are I would say on the rise as far as teaching people how to progress, because you go to the range, you're shooting at a still target. It's really hard to know how good am I, under stress, how good would I be? Because if you get in a defensive shooting situation, you're under a lot of stress. And I've responded to a lot of shooting situations with officers, and what they say the average is an average person, no matter how good of a shot you are, you lose about 70% of your manual dexterity when you get involved in a defensive shooting situation.
70%.
Yeah. So knowing how to respond under stress is, a good thing. It may save your life. And so, that's what we have. It's like 5 different modules right now. They're if it goes well, they'll develop more, but they want to make sure that this actually is successful before they continue developing more modules. Sure. And I have a lot of different things that I will teach, depending on where that person's at, from the training I've already had. But this is really exciting for me. And a lot of it's timed, and there's a lot of pressure, and we do all sorts of different things, drawing from concealment, moving, shooting different yards, close and far away, and it'll tell people basically where they're at.
Do you guys do on-site active shooter training?
We do. I am a certified active shooter trainer with law enforcement and with the USCCA. So we would do that for churches or businesses. Yeah, and there's a new. Speaking of Sean Ryan, we were talking about this I think before the cameras start rolling, but he just interviewed a couple of guys. One's a former Delta Force guy, one's a former SWAT guy, and they're demonstrating this new rifle they have that's been approved by the ATF that it's not a rifle, and they're rolling out in January at the SHOT Show a Glock version of it. So they're going to get into handguns, and basically, this is a way of doing active shooter training with civilians. Even like they go into people's homes right now and just you rent us out. We'll go in there and teach you how to defend your home. And you've got, we'll set up cardboard targets in these little things. You have to load them just like you would bullets, but the pellets will hit the cardboard target and you'll see a little indentation there. We even have red ones that will splatter like red, simulating blood. And the nice thing about this versus what we've used in law enforcement, which is simunitions, is simunitions jam a lot. This doesn't jam, according to what they're telling us. So I'm looking at getting something like this after the first year, handguns more specifically, so that we can do real world simulations where there's something shooting back at you. And the only thing you need is a pair of goggles. With airsoft, I was kind of looking at getting airsoft because airsoft replicates all sorts of different popular model handguns, Glock 19, SIG, P320, staccatos. But you need a mask, because it's a rubber little bullet and it flies at you. And it does reduce the reality of it. It doesn't feel as real when you're wearing this whole mask. In this particular model that they've come out with, they only need goggles. You don't wear a mask. So I like that. From what they're saying, and this is one of the things a lot of us instructors really wanted and just haven't had the ability to get, is something that's more lifelike, that simulates a real world scenario. So that is a goal. I've contracted 8 guys to be instructors under me, not including my wife, who's also an instructor, but 7 of the 8 of them are current or former law enforcement. So I got SWAT guys and guys who've been in the shootings before, guys with a lot of real world experience who are going to come in and also help our company with training and develop different programs and stuff. So we're looking forward to. We're kind of, everybody's trying to just get in on the new requirements for becoming a CCW instructor with Placer County, because the state has put on these extra requirements, which we're all qualified for. We just got to go through the rigmarole and the hoops, turn in post certificates and that kind of stuff. But we'll be rolling out a lot of exciting stuff in the years ahead.
What about like establishing a physical facility of doing that kind of training? How hard is it to do, and is this something that you would consider in the future?
Oh, absolutely. My goal is to get some property, some acreage. One, just to set up a range. We'd also like to get an office, but those things take money. And because this is, I'm fairly new at this. I've only been doing this for a year and a half. I retired from law enforcement a year ago. And so my wife and I started this business like the midsummer of 2023, part-time, while I was still working full-time. What we lack right now is name recognition. We don't have that yet. So you have to build that clientele base up. But once we get a steady clientele base, we do plan on expanding. I mean, we're already expanding with the number of instructors we're getting. And but I want to get a facility where we could do things like indoor things. But the goal really is to take this out to the public as well. Once we get these particular types of training guns, go to people's homes and do security assessments on their homes and help them go through a real world scenario inside their home, because majority of violent crimes with guns happen inside the home. A lot of people don't know that, but if you're going to ever have to use a gun, the chances are you're going to probably a 70% chance if you have to ever use a gun for self-defense, it's going to be inside your home. And so what better place to know how to defend than your own home? So once we get these particular handguns, we'll definitely offer that as a service to go out to people's homes, as well as to go out to churches, We probably only work. I mean, we train everybody at the church, but the people we would go tactically with, train tactically, are the safety team. But if it's not the safety team, the basics of what we're teaching are run, hide, and fight. Things to look for, how to keep a good head on your shoulders while you're at church or in a business, and how to run, hide, and fight.
Yeah.
So we understand that everybody is comfortable with a gun, everybody wants a gun, but you can still learn how to defend yourself if an active shooter happens, because active shooters don't care if you like guns or not. They don't care if you have a gun or not.
Yeah.
They're not going to say, "Oh, you don't have a gun? Well, then you're safe." I'm only going to go where the guy's the gun. So that's just not how it works.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, I do feel that what you guys do is very, very important. And thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
I think this is it, and we'll make sure to put your information, your contact information, your website, and your social media in the description of the video. If there's anything else that you want to mention?
I just encourage people to think long and hard about your safety. Your safety is your number one priority, and you're never going to be able to get your life back if you lose it because you were unprepared. And so, if you are uncomfortable with guns, we do provide private lessons and basic intro classes to people who don't have a gun. And I encourage people to take us up on something like that first before you go out and buy a gun and spend money on a gun you really don't like and you didn't know it until you bought the gun. We do provide a variety of different kinds of guns so you get a better idea of which gun may be right for you. And it's different for everybody.
Oh, yeah.
But you have a constitutional right and a moral right to defend yourself. And I would encourage people to, just take a look around what's going on in society and, think long and hard about it. I'll tell you, just from a law enforcement perspective, it's very easy to spread law enforcement very thin. Next riot that happens, there's not going to be a whole lot of cops coming to help you out if you need it because we're all down handling the riot. And they're sure to come. They always will come. And so learning how to defend yourself, I think, is absolutely important. So thank you for your time.
I agree. Thank you so much, man. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah.
If you like this video, here's another one for you to watch. If you don't want to miss the next video, subscribe to the channel and hit the notification button.